Hey everybody, welcome to Cinema A to B. Today we're going to be talking about the 2022 television show Rogue Heroes. So, Ben, you're the one who kind of put me onto this and told me to watch it. How about you can start and let me know your thoughts?
So I think this is one of the better shows that nobody's watching. Like that's kind of my take on it, right? And it's relegated to epics.
MGM Plus now.
Did they switch? That's right. They got bought or they got sold.
Yeah,
you're right. MGM Plus. The last time I checked, you could watch the first two episodes if you had a Prime membership. A friend of ours, Travis Williams, is the one that let me know, hey, you need to watch this. So shout out to Travis.
Thanks, Travis.
I do know he's listening. So that was a great recommendation because I really enjoyed this show. My only gripe's that it's only 6 episodes long.
Yeah.
Like it's a super short first season.
Yeah, they are doing a second season. So.
Yes. Since I felt like this is a show nobody's watched, I'll just give a real quick synopsis. So this is, the full name's kind of SAS Rogue Heroes. And so it's based on a book about the formation of the famous Special Forces unit, the British SAS, and their formation in North Africa. I had a great time watching this. It is from the creator of Peaky Blinders. And the similarity is they use the modern music in it, which is very, very divisive. I've kind of just accepted it. It's not my preference, but I just sort of roll with it. But outside of that, it's this awesome combination. It's almost like they took Band of Brothers and melded it with Generation Kill.
Yeah.
Because it's the era of Band of Brothers, but it sort of has the modern crass sensibilities of something like Generation Kill.
Which honestly probably was that crass back then too, especially with a unit like this.
It was. I think we like to filter. Yeah, I think we like to filter the past. Like I really, I agree with that. I think we like to filter Second World War, what the GI, what a soldier then was like. Because in a lot of ways, I mean, there's a whole lot more drinking going on then. But yeah, I mean, what was your take on it? Because I told you, hey, I tried not to hype it up. I tried to give you kind of a blank slate when I told you to watch it. So
you did a good job. So I sat down, everything was off, got to watch this, watched it over about the span of 3 days. So I will say the first episode, I was questioning you a little bit. Like the first episode did not pull me in. I was kind of like, I could see some of the good parts and stuff like that, but like it definitely didn't grab me. But I will say the second episode really did grab me. And like, so the first night I watched just one episode, and then the second night I was planning just to watch one, and then I ended up watching 2 because I was like, well, nope, I'm gonna have to watch more. And then the third day I watched the last 3 episodes because it had gotten that good. The characters had kind of gotten in their own, and just really, really liked it. Now I will real quick. I really liked the added modern music. Like I don't have any problems with it. I'm, really like Peaky Blinders. I really like that kind of adding in because it definitely allows the director and stuff to kind of set the mood a little bit more with a variety of music as opposed to something that more in tune to what I can kind of connect with as opposed to using something back then. Because you're not going to have, AC/DC style music from the 40s anyway. So but that's what that scene needed was something like that,
Well, and I do want to speak to it because I think there is a good argument to be made for the modern music that they've picked. There's something about the formation of this special forces unit and the unconventional warfare that they were adopting to fight the Nazis in the deserts of North Africa that is very punk rock.
Yep.
Like punk rock, rock and roll, breaking with convention, anti-establishment. That's what these guys were doing. And so the music that fits, like AC/DC is a perfect example, and it is in the show. That fits.
And let's be honest, you and I are calling this modern music. And in relation to the to World War II, it is modern music. But a lot of it's like 80s, early 90s, maybe some 70s. So like modern.
Well, it's the height of rock and roll. I mean,
yeah. So
rock is basically dead now. I mean, people keep making rock and roll music, but it's the glory years are in the well in the rearview mirror. So I'm glad they weren't, I'm glad this wasn't full of like Imagine Dragons and Nickelback or something.
Well, I mean, even Nickelback's really old now too.
The hardest of the rock.
But the nice thing I think what it does is that they also picked classic tunes, or like tunes that have withstood time already. So like, watching this in 20 years, you're not going to be like, what is this? Like, it's not like watching like a movie from the 70s now. You're like, wait, what the heck music is this or whatever, it's going to continue on. Like, it's going to be continuing in, musicdom that we're going to be hearing this stuff elsewhere.
Right.
So
now I do want to speak to the visuals. This is as well shot a show as I saw last year. I mean, I put it, the other one was Rings of Power that I just thought was really well shot, but this is a beautifully shot and color graded show, and the visual effects really are, for the most part, really pretty good. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know what the budget was. It looks expensive, and the fact that it was only 6 episodes, and I did read that the BBC, this is one of the most expensive BBC productions of all time, and so they've not released the budget. Like, it is, you can't find it. It's so, which to me is like, oh, okay, that's probably, I don't know, $150-200 million TV show. I have no idea.
Yeah. It's expensive. Now, I will say, like, touching on that, it is definitely a beautiful show. And it's, I would say, even more so in a lot of ways because they really only had one color palette for the most part. I mean, most of this happens in the desert, and they're all in like, khakis. So like, it's hard to kind of get that beautiful shot or get those beautiful looks with a very like, you have this much color tone.
It is. It's a narrow palette, but the saturation is really nice.
Oh yeah.
And then when they're in that kind of officers club in Cairo, like the colors pop.
So I have to,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a great looking show. It really is. It definitely looks its budget. Mm-hmm. It doesn't look cheap.
No.
And then the acting is super underrated. I mean, so you have this trio, right, with Stirling, Paddy Mayne, and then Jock Lewes, and everybody would recognize Alfie Allen from Game of Thrones. And I sort of recognize Jack O'Connell from the film Unbroken. Sorry.
Unbroken. Yeah, the other World War II
Non-Unbreakable. Blah.
Unbroken.
Yeah, the World War II POW film based on the book. So he was the main guy in that? Yeah. I don't know. He's like more muscled now in Rogue Heroes. And so I didn't really recognize him. And he's got a beard, but it's him.
And a completely different character. Like there's
completely different. Yeah.
Nothing the same between the two.
Well, and he's a scene stealer. Mm-hmm. But this Connor Swindells that plays Stirling
was amazing.
He was. And what was cool about him was he's like the only one of the three that actually looks like probably the proper age. Like of how young these guys really were. Because that's always a big complaint, right? So Band of Brothers is my favorite. I know I mentioned on another episode that my favorite film is Shawshank Redemption, but all things being equal, like my favorite thing ever put to film is Band of Brothers. Like it is. There's no close second. But my only complaint with Band of Brothers, the performances are great, but nobody looks the right age. Everybody's super old. Like everybody's supposed to be like 18, 19, 20, and they're all like 35, right? Like everybody, nobody looks age appropriate in Band of Brothers, just for the same reason they don't look age appropriate in Saving Private Ryan. They really don't.
No.
Black Hawk Down gets close as far as war movies where they actually look young.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the trade-off, right? You need good actors, and like the odds of you hiring some kid that's 18, 19 that's going to be able to carry your movie is
be tough. Yeah.
Low. But this Connor Swindells, he's young. Like he's still in his 20s and he looks super young.
Yeah. But he pulls it off. Like, my goodness, like I'd only seen him in one other thing before this, and he was okay at best. And like when he did this, I was absolutely floored by just how well, like when he was in frame, and I would say he's the only one who could, keep up with Jack O'Connell with the scene, like who could actually, I wasn't immediately pulled away and looking at Paddy Mayne. Like I was still looking at David Stirling as well when he was talking, which is kind of fun since in the show, those two characters, David Stirling was the only one who really like Paddy Mayne kind of respected and would
Like
listen
tolerated
to.
him.
Yeah, tolerated him. Like so, like
Totally.
it was this. Other than that, he just kind of barreled everyone, which was kind of the exact thing what the actor did. Was like anytime he was in the scene, it was like, no, it's just him. Except for when Connor was in there, they kind of balanced it out a little bit. So it was kind of fun where like life meets, creativity and acting and stuff like that.
This guy playing Stirling just oozed the charisma needed to kind of hold his own against the character that's played by Paddy Mayne. And frankly, make it believable on what he's trying to do, which is form this unit in a really kind of sneaky way to pull off. Now, there aren't a lot of, like I said, there aren't a ton of recognizable actors in this, and I think that's where they saved budget. So they've got this Alfie Allen, and then you had, who's the guy that formed the Shadow unit?
Oh, Dominic West?
Yes, Dominic West is Dominic West is like the best known actor in the show,
who I love,
and he's great. He's
as always.
The guy just kills it in everything he's ever been in. And then the other one that I want to point out is the Sophia Boutella.
Oh yeah, she was fantastic.
Eve. Yeah. So the acting is completely on par. It's on point. This is a good show. This is a good show. It's super crass. It's super irreverent, which I think is true to the real guys.
Yeah. And it's got that British crass to it as well. It's not just like, crass. It's upscale crassness, it's got that little British flair to it.
Now, did Laura watch this with you?
No, she did not. No. So
do you think she would appreciate it or not?
I don't know. Like, I actually do want her to watch it, but now that my 7 days are up for free from MGM Plus, I'm like, well, guess maybe we'll watch the first 2 episodes, and then maybe if anything, we'll pay for another for a month, because there's also like a couple other shows on MGM Plus that I was like, maybe.
By the way, everyone, that was the sneaky way that I figured out how to watch this thing and not pay for it, was watch the first 2 episodes on Prime, do a 1 week free trial of MGM Plus.
Yep. And
then kill the free trial.
Yep. And
I know they hate it if anybody's listening works for MGM Plus is hating my guts right now, but that's how we did it. And yeah, I had so much fun watching this, and I binged it really quick. I think it was a week and a half, and I was done with it.
Yeah.
Because the episodes aren't that long.
No, they're just around an hour. So I think it's a little less than an hour. So, you're talking like maybe 5 hours total between all 6 episodes. So, easily bingeable.
And it's not, I should mention, and the show is very irreverent and very funny, but it's not all fun and games. There's some emotionally really difficult moments in the show. And I feel like they hit more because things are kind of fun and light and, for a lot of it. But then they remind you, by the way, this is combat. Like this is guys, and everything they're doing is frankly an even higher level risk.
Yeah.
Because they are behind enemy lines the whole time. And I love that. Me, I'm a sucker for this stuff. I love military movies, especially anything dealing with special operations that's done well.
Yeah.
And that's not a long list of movies or TV shows. And so this one was like a pleasant surprise out of left field.
I really enjoyed because this was a story that I didn't really know much about. Like I'd known about the Special Air Service and some things, but I didn't actually know how they were formed. And so like after watching this, I started reading up a little bit more about it and kind of like, what do they get right? What do they kind of have to change? And they didn't change that much. Obviously some of it is for pacing. Some of it is done for story, or they had to, condense a couple of people into one for the most part. But like, other than that, like it's, a lot of the major story beat points are correct. And so like
David Stirling, real guy.
Yeah.
Paddy Mayne, real dude.
Real guy. Yeah.
Jock Lewes, real guy. Yeah. So yeah, your triumvirate basically is what it is for most of the first season. Are real guys.
Yeah.
And I, based on what I'd read, their characterizations are really pretty accurate. And they're all very different.
Yes. Like, they're not the same person.
No, not at all. You kind of have you have like the warrior poet who's just a brawler. And he is a classic warrior poet, which is great. and then you have kind of the brain trust of the operation, and then you have kind of the charismatic
leader,
yeah. And it's like without one of them, this venture doesn't really prove successful. But yeah, it's a bumpy ride.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to go back to Alfie Allen, because for him, he was definitely the one that I had the hardest to kind of, get into his character. Because obviously, as I'm seeing him, I haven't seen him in a ton, just seen him in Game of Thrones, and he was that character for a long time. So like I'm seeing this kind of, trying to like take everything I know about him as his character from Game of Thrones and throwing it away. And by probably the second episode, it was done. Like he got over that. I mean, he doesn't get a ton of screen time in the first episode. He does a decent amount, but definitely not as much as Connor does in the first episode. But by the second episode, I was totally into his character. Like I was like, wow, you've definitely kind of transitioned yourself. Like you are definitely playing a different person than just kind of yourself or whoever you were in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, and he's a more subtle character.
Yeah,
he's not as in your face as the other two leads are.
But he pulls off a kind of that subtle, like sure of himself for the most part, or like at least he's acting like he's sure of himself so well. Like, I mean,
yeah,
Paddy Mayne's in your face, and so is David Stirling of just kind of thinking he's all that and like I can sell everything. Whereas, Lewis's character is just very much like, you don't have to believe that I have it all together, but I do.
But he is the smartest of the three.
Oh, easily.
And the other two guys aren't dumb. He's frankly on a kind of another level with the way his mind works.
Yeah.
It's a neat look at a piece of history that hasn't really been explored that much, because the whole North Africa campaign doesn't really get a lot of love in movies and TV.
No.
As far as Second World War, it's Europe, then it's the Pacific. And then you got a few movies that even touch the fighting in the desert, and then into kind of the Italian campaign, which I think is where this is going. I feel like that's probably where they're headed for. And you probably only get because this is a BBC show. I know for a fact we're only going to get like 2 or 3 seasons of this,
which I'm okay with,
because that's which is fine. Yeah. No, the British aren't afraid to only run a show for 2 or 3 seasons, and it's not because the show got canceled for doing poorly. It's just they've just have a history of allowing shows to like run their course and not bleed them dry. That's kind of a flaw of the stuff here in the States. The only reason I know that, what's that?
So a long running show in Britain is like 5 seasons. At that point, you're like, that's long.
Yeah. Why let it decline? Like, why wouldn't you leave the viewer like on a high note?
Well, and also think about how many shows, because they went on too long and they declined, that we no longer think of the same regard as we would have in like season 4 or 5 of their run.
Game of Thrones is probably the number one I think of that.
And Game of Thrones, I mean, that is more, they just didn't stick the landing for the end. Like they just
but you could see the decline in like the prior season or 2 as well.
Yeah.
Like, and a lot of that was them just moving beyond source material. You could tell. You could just tell. So that's on Martin for just
dragging his feet,
for not freaking finishing his books,
counting his money from the adaptation of the show.
But this show, I'd be perfectly content with 1 or 2 more seasons. I think that's probably where it ends. But if somebody's, I think the audience for this is admittedly kind of narrow, but hopefully there's nobody listening that loves Peaky Blinders that hasn't found this. Because if you're a Peaky Blinders fan and you're listening, you need to watch this show.
Yeah,
same creators, stylistically very similar tone. It's different. It's not the same. It's not as brooding,
and it's not as convoluted as Peaky.
Yeah,
after like focused. Season 2, I was like, I'm starting to go like, wait, I need to take notes to keep track of what's going on.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But no, I mean, is this better than Band of Brothers? Of course not.
No.
it's probably not even quite as good as Generation Kill, but it's close, and it's just as funny.
Yeah, I love
it's every bit as funny. So yeah, there's not a long list of these series, these streaming shows on military units. Just a handful of them. But here's another pretty good one.
The only thing I could say is slightly detracting is that I did not understand Paddy Mayne 90% of the time. Like, I had to throw on subtitles to understand some of the stuff that he said.
So it's just like that Facebook post we made probably a month ago on, hey, you're not going deaf. It's not just you. Nobody can understand anything.
Well, this one I could understand everybody else. It was just him and his accent, and I was just like, wait, what did you just say? Like, so
it's that Irish lilt.
Yeah.
It's a pretty thick Irish lilt too.
Oh, he does a great job, like of pulling it off and still acting and stuff. But I was like, no, I want to know what this is, and so I threw on closed captioning to pick up what he was trying to say.
Yeah.
So everybody else was fine. So yeah. Oh man. It's enjoyable. This is definitely probably the one show I'd say is, like you said earlier, not on anyone's radar. It is easy to be missed, but it's well worth the watch. It is definitely probably the one of the like diamonds in the rough that from 2022.
And again, mad props to Travis.
Yes, thank you, Travis.
This is one of those good shows that you're probably not watching, and should.
Well, hopefully everybody enjoys this. Go see it.